All right, in today's video, we are going to look at another 1035 exchange analysis. We've got a fun one today. It is a unique situation, although every situation is somewhat unique. We are going to look at a policy on an individual in their mid-50s. He started a VUL policy. VUL stands for Variable Universal Life Insurance Policy back at the age of 30 in the year 1996. I was about eight years old at that point in time. So I was a baby, not a baby, but I was little. Didn't know anything about life insurance, but he's in his 50s now. So this is going to be a really interesting case because his question was, hey, with this VUL policy, last year I made a huge payment. He funded it up to the maximum non-MEC, non-taxable event. Max funded it, and his minimum premium is next to nothing. It's $562 per year. So it's a very, very small dollar amount. His question is, does it make sense just to transfer this over into a new whole life insurance policy, which he is considering? He's going to start a new whole life insurance policy with a relatively large dollar amount going in each year. And his question was, what makes more sense? Do I go with the whole life insurance policy and keep going as I have been going with the VUL policy? Or should I look at the whole life policy and roll everything that I have in the VUL policy into the new whole life contract? Because with the variable universal life insurance policy, what happens regarding expenses? With most universal life products, the expenses increase and exceed the guaranteed rate. You'll almost always see that with IULs, indexed universal life. VULs depends on when it was issued, what the guaranteed or fixed account offering is. This one will be interesting. Like the last video, whenever we look at a 1035 exchange, we discuss the point that we want to look at what? Current values. What do things look like based on the present dividend rate or the present assumptions if I'm looking at a VUL? Guaranteed values, and then look at the break even, but look at it carefully. We don't have to look at it as carefully in this example because he's just about at his break even point with that VUL. The last video was more important to look at that piece because that was an early 1035 exchange, and that's where people can often run into a situation where it's, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done that because I didn't have full transparency on everything that I was doing regarding looking at the break even carefully. But can ignore that part for this video. We'll have some fun. So we're going to look at an individual again in his 50s, VUL to whole life. Does it make sense considering everything? Let's take a look at everything. What we will begin with is his VUL policy. So we've got the formal illustration. We're not going to pull that up just for confidentiality purposes. But here, a lot of information. And what I've got up top, I know that's in small print here, is years 1 through 25. So this policy is quite old. Started in 1996. He was at the age of 30 at that point in time. Made payments in 2021 is the last inputs we had on the in-force illustration he had provided. Now, we do not have the data, the annual statements that provide the actual values. What has the cash value actually produced each year? What's the death benefit grown to over time? Then we can plug in the annual internal rate of return. What we were given was an in-force illustration. And we were also provided with his cost basis, which is his total payments since day one. So as we take a look at this guy, we've got two examples here. The one on the left represents the worst case scenario, the guaranteed values. And this is based on the guaranteed maximum expenses that the insurance company can charge. In addition to that, it provides just the fixed account of 4%, which is offered to him. And right now, that's his preference, or that's what he had expressed at least, just as a result of the market kind of being crazy right now. We are shooting this video June 30th of 2022. So it's been tanking for a bit now. And this is a VUL policy. So if he hasn't invested in the market, obviously it can impact him more. But here we go. So on the in-force illustration, his question was, can I make more large payments? Because his minimum payment here is minimum. This is the annual payment, $562. Last year, he had paid in, it was over $100,000, made a huge catch-up payment, dumped it right into the policy value. So total payments, this is by policy year 26, age 55, $136,000. We've got two more payments on the illustration. And again, these are the guarantees here. So more of a worst case scenario. Okay. Break even point, a couple more years. He's just about there. And those initial expenses, based on the issue date, are when? He started at age 30. So no more payments after the age of 57, 0 out of pocket. Total input to the policy, and this is again based on guarantees, $137,000. Here's your cash value accumulation. We can input a cash value growth column here as well, where that can be beneficial. A lot of people appreciate this, is we would have another column here that if I take age 58, for example, I get to see how much did the cash value grow by. It was $136,312. I paid in 0. Next year, based on the guarantees, it's $140,000. So it grew by just about $4,000 in that example, based on the guarantees. When I say guarantees, the guaranteed expenses as well. But that guaranteed fixed account was 4%. Is he actually earning 4%? No. This is the case with all life insurance products. You'll see it with the whole life when we get to that as well. Internal rate of return, which is really not bad based on his age and the absolute worst case scenario assumption we've got here. It is provided from his in-force illustration, which we analyzed and exported to Excel. In his 70s, what's happening with the values? Still appreciating. Do you see the values go down like what you would normally see with a universal life insurance policy? No. Continue to appreciate over time. So he's got a good product here that has a solid fixed account at 4%. Even at the guaranteed maximum expenses, it continues to appreciate. Now, the non-guaranteed values are not based on a stock market assumption. He actually requested these be run at the same 4% fixed account, but based on the current expenses. So what the company is presently charging for the insurance expenses associated with the product, with a universal life policy, they do adjust over time. However, as we look at this, how's it look? Same payments, break even, couple more years from now, continues to appreciate. There's the net internal rate of return. Old policy, issued in the late 90s, 96, mid-90s. So what we want to look at now is specifically, what does this look like compared to a new policy? So what he's looking at regarding the new policy is funding a total of $700,000 into a whole life insurance policy. So the whole life policy, the $700,000 is moved over a period of 5 years based on his age and what we're trying to accomplish. That was extremely efficient. He had the lump sum of money, just saying, okay, I'd like to shift it over. What's the most efficient strategy here? And we looked at different scenarios. So here's the funding. Cash value is less typically than what we like to see up front based on the company selection and company and product selection. But as we look at this guy, break even between years 5 and 6. This is a post-7702 change. So the guaranteed rate is at 3% in this example. And then we've got the VUL policy. So remember, the purpose of this video that we're shooting right now is what? 1035 exchange analysis. When we're looking at a 1035 exchange, first we want to see what's the current plan. And when I say current plan, here's what he is going to do. Here's what he already has. Should he do them, have both policies separately, or should he consolidate everything into one? And actually looking at the numbers, not just saying, hey, it looks better here based on the non-guarantees. So small amount going in, but there's his cash value accumulation over time. Okay. Then you've got the combined values. So the combined values current, what that means current, is based on the current dividend rate and also the current insurance expenses with that VUL policy. So everything as they are today, and then assuming things stay the same indefinitely as the years pass. But what we see here, the combined values, years 2 and 3, the payment is just over 140 grand. He's not funding this with a whole lot more. But there's the combined value. So both policies separately, if he just puts everything on a balance sheet, here's what it will look like over time. Cash value and death benefit. So before we look at the comparison, this is based on the current values. Let's look at the guarantees. Important to do this. Combined values, guarantees. What's guaranteed? That's always a good question to ask. 140K per year. There we go. Total of 700 in. What was your break even on the pure whole life product in the last example? Between years 5 and 6. Now we're looking at the guarantees, no dividends. What do you notice here? Well, now all of a sudden, it's pushed out between years 10 and 11. How about this guy? We already looked at this. This was the first one we looked at actually, based on the guarantees, the appreciation over time. And then we've got the combined values over here. So based again on guarantees, that's what things look like. So the combined values that we looked at here, this is the guarantees, and how you can tell without having to go back and forth or rewinding is take note of the death benefit. If the death benefit's not increasing after I'm funding the policy or beginning year 8, that means it's based on the guarantee, based on the guarantees. If the policy values are increasing, like if we go back to the combined values based on the dividend rate, that means it's based on the present dividend rate. And you'll see much higher values too. So what we want to look at here is the combined values that we just looked at and directly compare that with a 1035 exchange scenario. Meaning I've got the same whole life policy, the exact policy I'm going to do, 140K per year, and now show me what it looks like if I transfer the funds over. Let me see the values and compare that with my other 2 policies or the original strategy of a separate whole life and keeping what I have intact, seeing what it looks like. All right, so here we go. On the left, combined values, non-guaranteed values. So based on the present dividend rate. Non-guaranteed, keep that in mind. There's your funding, years 2 and 3, a little bit higher because you're finishing off the payments for the VUL. He's already asked if he can pay more into the VUL. He's not able to. He maximized it last year. And there's your values over time. Compared to the 1035 exchange, and just go all in with the whole life insurance product. Just say, hey, I'm getting rid of this VUL. What do things look like over time? There's your 1035 exchange, pure PUA infusion. 100% of that goes toward PUAs, dumping money into cash value. Break-even point between years 5 and 6, close to year 5. What's the cash value difference here look like? Well, based on the present dividend rate, the immediate impact is negative. You lose about $11,000. Some people will stop right there, not for me. If we keep looking, what happens next year? The loss is minimized to $8,700, then $8,500. And based on the present expenses and present dividend rate with this insurance company, we see that eventually those values look better. How about the death benefit here? Start out with more, then for a period of time, the original strategy gives me more death benefit. And then what happens as the years pass? What do you notice? I've got more money if I just consolidate everything into one. All right, does it make sense to do a 1035 exchange based on that then? Hey, you'll have more money based on the illustration. Not so fast. So if you and I flip positions and we're looking at this, what I would request to see is as follows. Let's look at the guarantees. So same thing here, but the guarantees, oops, 1035 exchange, there we go. Here we go. So identical scenario, but guarantees, and what do we have? Different situation, and you can tell just by looking at these 2 columns. So as we take a look, combined values, VUL and whole life. 1035 exchange, go all in. Break even, almost a clean year 10. Absolute worst case scenario. Cash value difference, you lose 13 grand, almost 14 right out of the gates. Death benefit's higher for the first 7 years. You know why it drops all of a sudden year 8? What we did here with the whole life product is cut the term rider and executed what is called a reduced paid up because he doesn't want to fund the policy based on the current plan after 5 years. So we're going to shut the funding down, eliminate the premium altogether. It enhances cash value growth when I'm not making any more payments, but it does reduce the death benefit. And because it's based on the guarantees, the death benefit's not increasing over time, staying at the 1.4 million. So as I take a look at this guy, what do I notice? There's my values. As I look at my combined cash values, they gradually fall behind the strategy where I look at a new whole life product, but then keep my existing variable universal life product. And you can take it a couple steps further here too. Going back to the non-guarantees, we only looked at the fixed account with his VUL. If he says, hey, after a market correction, I want to put some money back into the market, right? Tie it to the market because I think I can do better there. That'll boost the overall values from what we see here. So it is a relatively small VUL, especially compared to what he's looking at with the whole life product. So really in this particular case, I would recommend keeping the existing policy, and some view it as it's not a huge difference and they like the idea of just simplifying things, consolidating. Maybe I get some more PUA flexibility. Maybe I design this where I've got a $160,000 or $170,000 MEC limit so I can add more to it and then I do want a new one. There's other factors that might sway your decision to be different than mine or someone else's, and that's okay. The main thing is just having enough information to make an informed decision. Transparency more than anything else. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun looking at the 1035 exchange analysis. I always do, but to kind of sum up our first video, a 1035 exchange is a good option to be aware of. You can transfer cash value on a tax-free basis from one policy to another. However, we do want to be aware of the drawbacks, particularly the upfront hit, and then also looking at some other things such as the guaranteed values. Carefully looking at the break even. How much money have I paid in total to my first policy? Let me factor in those payments when I look at the analysis to see my true break even point on my overall dollar value, how much I've paid in versus total cash value. So I hope you enjoyed it again. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more, and as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much for watching. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.